Hello and welcome to Learn How to See Better. It's the only podcast out there that'll improve your vision the longer you listen. I'm your host, Drew Davis, and today I want to take you through something that might be a little bit of a paradigm shift for you. Today we're talking about failure as feedback, which is probably different than the way you've maybe thought of feedback, and I'm going to break all that down for you real soon here today. But I'll start with this. For some of you, this is $1 million idea. Right now, I've got $1 million mindset. Enjoying a holiday weekend on location. Woke up in $1 million home today. So it only seems appropriate to bring you this $1 million ideas gift. Hopefully shift something for a listener out there today. It's grappling, it's growing, and then maybe listen to my last podcast episode, Growth and Comfort. I talked about it. Growth and comfort do not coexist. Something I've learned through my life's travels. If you're listening to this right now, you're probably on a growth journey, and so I want to go beyond that. Not quite a part two, but let's step beyond that concept. If we can adopt the idea and the mindset and realize that growth and comfort, they don't live together. They're not roommates. They're not really even friends hanging out. Then we sort of, as one of my mentors once put, surrender to our purpose. It's kind of like you know what it's going to be like out there, right? It kind of comes with the territory. If you're a firefighter, you know there's going to be some hot days. It comes with the territory. And so as we accept that and use that mentality of maturity to embark on our quest, our journey to achieve our goals, it can aid us when the weather gets cold, the times get tough, and you realize, okay, you might sense that discomfort, that struggling coming from growth. And here's the crazy part about it is we continue to go down this rabbit hole of sorts, the decision to become a lifelong learner, growth-minded individual, you're going to find that some of these initiatives you take on present you feedback in a unique format, feedback in the way of failure. Let's just think about it for a moment. When was the last time you tried something new? When you first attempted it, how well did you do? How did you evaluate that outcome? See, let's just go ahead and start diving into it. Failure as feedback is a paradigm shift. Because I can tell you many times in my life, I've looked at failure as something that it's almost like, it's almost hard to differentiate the label from the outcome. So if someone consistently experiences failure, society might label them a failure. That individual might label themselves a failure. You see where I'm going with this? Have you ever had a situation where you failed at something, where failure was the outcome of your effort? Was there ever a tendency to connect the two? I know I've experienced that. There's a difference between I failed and I am a failure. Make sure to differentiate them because it's easier said than done. I failed is just an outcome. It's a data point. If someone is to make the second statement, you got to be careful here because I am, those two words are about the most powerful two words you can use because whatever you put after that, right, you put into the universe. Do you really want to put that into the universe? But if you don't know that, because that's where statements like I can't will come from. Someone's tried again, and then they eventually say I can't. And they usually associate that with, I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or it's not for me. And instead of looking at that feedback, instead of looking at that outcome as a label, as a determinant on your permanent abilities, look at it as feedback. It's a complete paradigm shift. It's a reframe. If you're listening to this, I may not know much about your physical abilities, but you've heard the old drill sergeant blow the whistle, drop and give me 20. A lot of people can drop and give me 20 on command. A lot of people can't drop and give me 20. Could you drop and bust out 20 push-ups on demand right now? No preparation? If so, great. If not, great. Both scenarios give you feedback. And if you're on a growth journey, let's say in this example, to do more push-ups, you tried to just drop and do 20 and couldn't do 20, guess what? That's feedback. Does it mean you're a failure and you'll never be able to do 20 push-ups? No. It means current status is the strength is not quite there to be able to accomplish the goal. So much can be taken from that as information. If we take it as feedback, we say, okay, well, there might be a regimen put in place to say, hey, let's try this exercise. Let's start to do more of this. Let's shift our activities so that we can put ourselves on a trajectory towards being able to accomplish the desired goal. And maybe you just got to start with one push-up, little short hurdles you can easily step over, right? You've heard the saying, simple success swinging singles. But if we don't catch that tiny little differentiating mechanism of the outcome ain't all of it. The outcome is just a data point. So how do we do that? You say, oh, but you don't understand. I've tried so hard to do X. I tried so hard to make the varsity team or whatever it is. And if you've maybe not experienced that, we could have just checked out. Yeah. Deemed it to lack of ability, lack of skill, in some cases, lack of worth. But if we can shift that, and some of it comes with the shifting of how we look at things, look at our goals, look at our objectives. And if we can take a slightly different attitude, because we're doing something we haven't done before, right? We can all agree if we're embarking on a journey in life, maybe it's to get a law degree. Maybe you've never had a law degree before, so you're going to set forth on that journey. That experience is something you've never done before. So here's the hack. Look at that experience as almost like a mission where you have to gather the data, right? You got to gather the data and apply the data, because really your identity is one of the student. You're really out to just learn. And with learning, no different than trying multiplication or subtraction or calculus for the first time. There might be some computational errors that you make as you're learning how to apply the formulas correctly. Okay, 2 times 3 is not 7. It's 6. And if you put 7 on your paper, an instructor can help guide you and helps you see that the failure to generate the correct output is not a statement about the individual and their ability. And so being able to see that early on when you're out to accomplish something you've never thought of before, look at it as more of the student, more of that learner mentality. You're just gathering data. So now if I get a math problem wrong, or you fail at the sports move or whatever it is you're trying to do, you can look, oh, I didn't realize I can't do it that way. I need to do it this way. Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I know this may sound basic or rudimentary to some, but if you think about it, even at the highest levels, simulations and repetitions and data gathering are really what help prepare people for the real thing. Whether it's a pilot in a flight simulation or a IndyCar racer in a driving simulation, it gives them the opportunity to get data. It gives them the opportunity to gather feedback. Because when the margin of error is small, when you're in the cockpit of an airplane or in the cockpit of a F1 racing vehicle, you need to be able to gather as much data as possible so you can get that feedback of errors in judgment. So if they're made in a practice environment, they're not made in the real environment where life is on the line. See what I'm saying? When it comes to high stakes situations, there's not really the luxury to sit there and contemplate failure versus failure of output versus failure as the individual as being a thing in some of those. So it becomes critical in many instances to get as much data, as much feedback, as much info as possible as you're going through doing the thing, so that when you rise again to that next level, you're fully equipped, fully prepared to have all the information you need to take the right action and make the right decision. So the next time you're trying to level up and you realize, okay, I've accepted that growth and comfort don't coexist, but man, okay, I'm uncomfortable, so that must mean I'm growing. That's great. But then there's that element of where does that discomfort come from? The discomfort comes from the attempts that aren't successful. It comes from seeing others around you maybe doing it, something you're trying to do in a group setting, and they're doing it faster, or they're doing it easier. They're doing it with less effort. But it doesn't mean that they're any better than you. It's not about a comparison. Really, you're competing with yourself to become the best version of yourself. And part of that is getting the old reps out, the old repetitions, the old movements, the old unfamiliarity out of the mix. And when you think about that, it makes a whole lot of sense. You've heard the different stats, was it 10,000 hours invested to become an expert at something, or whether it's, martial arts, was it, I don't even get the quotes right sometimes, a guy could know, 1,000 kicks, but really only needs one kick 1,000 times to really be the best. Visualize that and it'll all come together for you, trust me. But that's part of the hack. If you are on a growth mission and you've accepted that there'll be some discomfort, know that that discomfort only comes from the lack of familiarity, the lack of repetitions, the lack of knowledge, the lack of, muscle memory and brain memory. So you got to get those reps in and take the feedback that you get from the failures as fuel to keep you going. Okay, I'm only 97% wrong now in this answer. Let's keep going. Maybe I can get down to 95% wrong. Then all of a sudden you're 50% wrong, 20% wrong, 0% wrong. And you've got all the answers. And you're now the master. You're now the instructor. You're now the expert. But it took those repetitions of failure. It took that data gathering so you could collect all that feedback and aggregate it into the corrective measures that you can implement and put into play and make your desired thing, goal, objective, a reality in the present. And that's so cool once you get to the other side of that, and make sure that you don't get caught up in those potholes on the way. Oh man, I tried to, whatever it is. I've been trying to do 40 pull-ups in a row, unbroken, for a long time. And for a guy my age, that's not a typical feat. And for several years, I've attempted that goal and not reached it. And at times I've thought, man, maybe I just waited a little too late to set this one. I'm getting a little long in the tooth. This might be a little ambitious for a mid-40s guy to do 40 pull-ups, right? He set the goal at 40. But I took that feedback and continued to refine things about my form, my technique, my consistency, right? My precision in the action. And it might have taken a few extra years than I planned, but was able to hit that goal. But if I'd accepted failure as I'm not capable, I have lost the ability to perform this physical feat, then I'd be just left with, whatever head trash comes with that, regrets and sadness and blah, blah, blah. Instead, I was able to say, okay, what's actually happening when I try to get to 40 pull-ups and I can't? Well, you see that pull-ups, 37, 38, 39, and 40 are, 100 times harder than the first one in concept. So what do you got to do? You got to get your stamina up. You got to be able to last longer in the late rounds. Okay, if you consistently see late stage fatigue, that means this is an endurance issue. And this is just a real life near-term example. I could have given up on that goal years ago, but I stuck with it. I used failure as feedback, used it as a training mechanism. I didn't doubt myself, my worthiness, my capabilities, and soon enough, I rose to the occasion and I was able to execute on that goal and felt pretty darn good about it. So what can you do? What are you capable of? What have you attempted in the past and failed at, and maybe made the error in judgment that it reflects on you personally as an individual, as a statement of your value, your status, your self-worth? No. That in of itself is an error in judgment. So go back, run back the tapes, rewind the time, remember the time, and redesign it in your mind and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with me, right? I'm a child of God, and God don't make no junk. So maybe I just need to reframe the information I received. I am not a failure. I'm a winner. I may have failed. I may have made errors. I may have things I need to learn and go through and grow through to conquer the stage or age. But as you turn that different page, you'll be able to figure it out. So let that sit with you as you take this and go on in your own growth quest. And remember that failure as feedback can be one of the most powerful paradigm shifts you can make if you're on a growth journey. Because even if you could accept it at a basic level and broken comfort towards it, guess what? That feedback that you get, how you process that. If you don't process it the right way, it's going to knock you out of the game. You're going to make inaccurate judgments about yourself and your capabilities and count you out before anyone else ever had. So that's your octane fuel for today. Put that in your Formula One vehicle and race that around the track a few times. To the checkered finish, y'all. Learn how to see better. Thanks for listening. This is your host, Drew Davis. Catch you on the next one.